Mikhail Aronov does not duck when the shell passes over him. Not anymore. After 2 years on the Eastern Front, a man learns which sounds are meant for him and which ones are only passing through. The long metal scream, the tiny pause after it, the way the ground answers before the air does. This one is German. It falls somewhere behind the tree line, too far to matter. So Aronov keeps staring at the bunker. It is not large. That is what makes it worse. A low concrete block sunk into a torn ridge, roof packed with frozen soil, firing slit cut so narrow it looks less like an opening than a wound in the wall. For 6 hours, that slit has been enough. A Soviet rifle company tried the left approach at dawn. They vanished in the wire. An engineer section crawled forward under smoke. The machine gun waited until the wind thinned the cloud. Then it stitched the snow flat. A second company came in behind the burned-out truck on the road. By mid-morning, nobody was using the truck for cover anymore, because there was no one left close enough to reach it. Aronov has seen tanks fail against guns. He has seen guns fail against mud. But this bunker feels different. It feels like a door the whole army has been ordered to kick open from the wrong side. Then he hears an engine, not close at first, just a deep, steady grinding from behind him. T-34. Everyone in the trench knows that sound. The German gunners know it too. That is why nobody understands what is about to happen. Because the machine coming through the smoke looks like every other T-34 on the front. Same sloped armor, same turret, same short, brutal shape cutting across the open ground. Nothing about it says flamethrower, and that is the part that would break the bunker. By 1943, the German army had learned that concrete could do what exhausted men could not. It could stay awake. Across the Eastern Front, German engineers built strong points into ridges, villages, river bends, and frozen tree lines. They called them Stützpunkte. The name sounded technical, almost modest. But these were not modest positions. They were machines for controlling fear. A well-built strongpoint did not have to cover a whole battlefield. It only had to cover the one piece of ground the enemy had no choice but to cross. 40 meters of open snow, a road shoulder, a ditch line, the mouth of a ravine. Once the bunker owned that ground, everything else became arithmetic. How many men could run through it before the machine gun found them? How many shells could strike the roof before the crew inside climbed back to the firing slit? How many sappers could carry explosives to the wall before one of them fell on the charge? The answer too often was none. That was the genius of the bunker. Not that it was indestructible. Nothing on the Eastern Front was indestructible. The genius was that every normal answer attacked the bunker from the outside. Artillery hit the roof. Infantry hit the wire. Engineers hit the wall. Even a demolition charge had to be carried to the face of the position by a man moving slowly with death strapped to his chest. The designers had planned for all of that. They had poured the concrete thick. They had angled the slit. They had placed the machine gun so the attackers could be seen before they could see anything useful back. They had turned distance into a weapon, and for a long time distance won. Soviet reports from 1941 and 1942 were full of the same ugly pattern. Barrage, assault, casualties, bunker still firing, another barrage, another assault. More casualties. The position might fall eventually, but the price was sometimes so high that the victory looked less like success than subtraction. A bunker could survive 30 minutes of shelling and still fire 5 minutes later. A rifle platoon could cross half the approach and stop existing. A sapper could reach the wire, lie there with a satchel charge under one arm and never move again. The German crew inside did not need to be brave every second. The concrete was brave for them. That was what Soviet crews had to defeat. Not a wall, a belief. And the answer came from a question that sounded almost childish the first time someone asked it. What if the wall was not the target? What if the inside was? The Soviet Union had experimented with flamethrower tanks before the T-34 ever carried one into battle. The early machines were built on light tanks that were already dying by the thousands in 1941. They could frighten infantry. They could burn a trench. But against a prepared defense, they had the same problem as every other fragile idea on the Eastern Front. They had to live long enough to matter. Most did not. The T-34 changed the question. Its armor was sloped, its engine was powerful, its tracks could cross ground that trapped lighter vehicles, and most importantly, it already frightened German infantry before anyone modified it. That mattered more than the engineers first understood. In Soviet repair shops and factories far from the front, the new idea was not to build a strange-looking fire tank. The idea was to hide a strange weapon inside an ordinary tank. The flamethrower system was fitted into the hull where the bow machine gun normally sat. The turret gun stayed, the silhouette stayed, the engine note stayed. The thing the enemy recognized as a T-34 remained a T-34, except it carried about 100 liters of thick incendiary mixture behind the armor, enough for several bursts, enough to throw burning fuel across roughly 70 to 90 meters under pressure, enough if the crew got close to turn a firing slit into an entrance. That was the design choice that mattered, not fire alone. Fire on foot had existed for decades. Fire carried by a man was terrifying, but the man was soft. He could be shot. He could trip in the wire. He could die 20 meters from the target with the fuel tank on his back. Fire inside a T-34 was different. The tank could cross the killing ground that had eaten the infantry. It could ignore rifle fire. It could shrug off machine gun rounds that would cut a sapper apart. And because it still looked like a normal T-34, the bunker crew did not always know what danger they were watching until it had already closed the distance. The weapon was not honest. That was why it worked. A visible flamethrower tank announces the one thing every defender must kill first. The Soviet OT-34 did not announce it. It approached like armor. It threatened like armor. It absorbed punishment like armor. Then, at the last possible moment, it stopped behaving like armor. Inside a bunker, the difference was absolute. A shell might strike the outside and fail. A bullet might spark off the firing slit and disappear. But a jet of burning fuel did not have to crack the wall. It only had to find the hole the defenders themselves needed in order to shoot. Every bunker had that weakness. The firing slit was the bunker's eye. It was also its throat. German officers later described the effect in the dry language officers use when the facts are too violent for ordinary words. The flame jet entered under pressure. It did not simply burn a single man at the gun. It spread, it struck the back wall, it splashed. It coated the floor, the weapon mount, the ammunition boxes, the timber supports. The men crouched below the slit, and in an enclosed room, fire does not only burn, it steals air, it makes smoke. It fills lungs with heat and poison before the mind can decide what to do. The same concrete that protected the crew from shells now trapped the thing that had come through the opening. The bunker had been designed as shelter. In seconds, it became a furnace with no door large enough to escape through. That was the terror of the OT-34. Not that it destroyed every bunker. No weapon did. Mines still stopped tanks. Anti-tank guns still killed crews. Bad ground still betrayed plans. A flamethrower tank that drove alone into a well-defended position could die as easily as any other tank that drove into the wrong fire. But when it reached the angle it needed, the old rules failed. The defenders were not being overpowered in the usual way. They were being attacked through the one opening their own design could not give up. The Germans had flamethrower armor too. Their Flampanzer III was a real weapon. It carried more fuel than the Soviet system and could be devastating against troops in the open. But it had a problem that looked small on paper and enormous in combat. It looked like a flamethrower tank. The main gun was gone. The shape of the weapon gave away its purpose. The moment Soviet soldiers learned to identify it, they knew what to shoot, what to avoid, and what to call artillery onto. So German doctrine had to protect the flamethrower vehicle with other armor and infantry. It became a special tool that needed a special escort to survive long enough to use its special weapon. The T-34 lived in a different category. At distance, it was just another T-34. A bunker commander looking through a slit saw what he expected to see. Soviet armor trying to close, maybe to fire high explosive, maybe to force the garrison's head down while infantry moved. He did not see the weapon that would make the wall irrelevant. That delay was measured in seconds. On the Eastern Front, seconds were sometimes enough to rewrite a doctrine. By the second half of 1943, German instructions began warning garrisons to watch for T-34s that behaved strangely on approach. A tank that did not fire its main gun. A tank that kept angling toward the slit instead of searching for a gun position. A tank that seemed too eager to close. Those warnings tell their own story. An army does not issue warnings about a trick that has not worked. It issues them after men have died trying to understand it, and the psychological damage may have mattered almost as much as the tactical damage. A bunker is not only concrete, it is confidence poured into a shape. The crew inside believes the roof will hold. They believe the open ground belongs to them. They believe that if they keep the machine gun fed and the slit clear, the attackers will break first. The T-34 did not merely kill that crew. It made the next crew doubt the room around them. It took the safest place on the line and gave it a hidden weakness. Once that doubt enters a defensive system, the system is never the same. A man behind 1 meter of reinforced concrete can still pull a trigger, but he pulls it differently if he knows the slit in front of him might become the path of the thing that kills him. That is what the Soviet engineers had found. They had not made a stronger hammer. They had found the hinge. Aronov sees the tank now. It comes out of the smoke faster than he expects. For a second, the men in the trench mistake it for a normal assault. Someone shouts for the infantry to get ready. Someone else curses because the minefield ahead of the ridge has not been fully cleared. The bunker opens fire. The machine gun snaps awake, a hard ripping sound that has ruled the whole morning. Tracers strike the T-34's front armor and skip away in white sparks. The tank does not turn. It does not answer with the main gun. That is the first strange thing. Aronov notices it before he understands it. A normal tank would fire. A normal tank would try to blind the slit with high explosive, or stop or swing its turret toward the muzzle flash. This one keeps driving 30 meters, maybe less. Close enough now that the slit is no longer a line in the concrete. It is a black rectangle with a gun inside it. The T-34 brakes hard. For one heartbeat, the whole battlefield seems to pause around the engine. Then the hull flashes, not the turret, the hull. A stream of fire leaps from the front of the tank and bends into the bunker's slit like something alive finding a crack in a door. It is too bright to look at and too fast to understand. Orange, white, black smoke behind it. The machine gun stops halfway through a burst, not slowly, not after a fight, it simply stops. Aronov waits for it to start again. Everyone does. That is what bunkers do. They go silent after shells. They go silent under smoke. Then the men inside climb back to the gun and the slit starts speaking again. But this time there is only the wind. The T-34 reverses. Its turret turns toward the tree line as if nothing unusual has happened. From where Aronov crouches, it still looks like a T-34. That is what unsettles him most. No monster shape, no exposed tank of fuel, no warning sign. Just a familiar Soviet machine pulling back from a German bunker that will never fire again. Later men will argue about ranges, about mixtures, about factory numbers, about how many OT-34s were built and where the first ones proved themselves in combat. They will compare systems, count leaders, sort reports, and decide which archive line matters most. But Aronov will remember something simpler. He will remember that all morning men had died trying to reach the outside of the bunker. And then one tank arrived with a weapon meant for the inside. That was the lesson. The German strongpoint had been engineered to defeat courage, numbers, shells, smoke, and desperate men with explosives in their hands. It had been built to make the front of the wall the only question. The OT-34 changed the question. It proved that a fortress is only as strong as the assumptions it is built around. And every assumption has a blind side. A wall can be thick. A firing slit can be narrow. A crew can believe they are safe because everything dangerous is outside. But safety is not a material, it is an angle, and once the fire found that angle, the bunker was no longer a bunker. It was a sealed room waiting for the air to run out. The strongest concrete on earth means nothing when the war comes in through the hole you left open.